Relationships thrive when built on a foundation of respect, both for ourselves and for others. Boundaries are the lines we draw to protect our well-being and foster healthy relationships. Without boundaries, relationships can become frayed, leading to resentment and hurt. Within a faith-based context, boundaries take on deeper meaning. Setting boundaries is about living in alignment with our beliefs and creating a space where we and others can thrive. By establishing clear boundaries, we nurture our relationship with ourselves and with God. Setting boundaries can feel like navigating a minefield of emotions. This internal struggle is often rooted in a fear of disappointing others or being perceived as selfish. When we haven't developed a strong sense of self, our boundaries can become entangled with the needs of others. Fear often prevents us from setting boundaries. We fear rejection, conflict, or the loss of the relationship. Fear can lead us to compromise our needs to maintain peace. Many of us struggle to articulate our boundaries. Without clear communication, we risk perpetuating unhealthy patterns. Open, honest communication allows our true selves to be heard. Unrealistic expectations can sabotage our attempts to set boundaries. Boundaries are about taking responsibility for ourselves, not controlling others. Healthy boundaries provide direction and stability in relationships. Respect forms the foundation of healthy relationships. Boundaries are the mortar that binds these stones together. By setting boundaries, we communicate that our needs and values deserve to be honored. Boundaries create a space where respect can flourish, allowing relationships to thrive. Trust is the bridge that connects our hearts, allowing us to share our deepest selves. Boundaries create a safe space for vulnerability to emerge. Without boundaries, vulnerability can feel risky and exposing. By setting healthy boundaries, we create the conditions for trust to blossom. Communication is the language that allows us to connect and build relationships. Boundaries provide a framework for expressing our needs and navigating disagreements. Without clear communication, misunderstandings can fester and relationships can erode. Open, honest communication fosters intimacy and connection. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, safeguarding our well-being. When we honor our limits, we send a powerful message. Our needs matter. Without boundaries, we risk depleting our emotional reserves. Establishing healthy boundaries empowers us to engage in relationships from a place of strength. Setting boundaries requires understanding our own needs and desires. Reflect on your non-negotiables and limits. Boundaries create a safe space for you to grow and thrive. Setting boundaries is an ongoing process of self-discovery and adjustment. Saying no is an essential skill for setting healthy boundaries. Think of your time and energy as valuable resources. Start by setting small, manageable boundaries. Saying no is about prioritizing your well-being to show up fully in relationships. Graceful assertiveness, communicating your boundaries. Imagine trying to teach a dog a new trick without using clear signals or consistent reinforcement. The dog might misinterpret your cues, leading to frustration and confusion for both of you. Similarly, communicating your boundaries effectively requires clarity, consistency, and a healthy dose of assertiveness. When expressing your boundaries, use I statements to convey your needs and feelings without blaming or accusing others. For example, instead of saying, "You're always interrupting me," you could say, "I feel disrespected when I'm interrupted. Could you please let me finish what I'm saying?" Be firm but kind in your delivery. Remember, you're not asking for permission to have boundaries, you're simply stating your needs and expectations. It's okay to be direct and assertive while still maintaining a respectful and compassionate tone. Consistency is key when it comes to enforcing your boundaries. If someone repeatedly disregards your limits, it's important to address the issue directly and reinforce the consequences of their actions. This might involve setting firmer boundaries, limiting contact, or even walking away from the relationship if necessary. Upholding the walls, maintaining your boundaries. Imagine a diligent gardener tending to their plants, carefully weeding out any unwanted growth that threatens to choke the life out of their precious blooms. Maintaining your boundaries requires this same level of diligence and care, a commitment to consistently reinforcing your limits and addressing any breaches with grace and firmness. It's natural for people to test boundaries, especially if they're accustomed to you being more flexible in the past. Don't be discouraged by these initial challenges. Stand firm in your convictions, knowing that you have the right to protect your well-being. Remember that maintaining boundaries is not about being rigid or inflexible. It's about finding a balance between honoring your own needs and being considerate of others. There may be times when you choose to bend your boundaries for the sake of a relationship, and that's okay. The key is to make these choices consciously and intentionally, not out of guilt, obligation, or fear of conflict. As you become more adept at setting and maintaining healthy boundaries, you'll likely notice a profound shift in your relationships. You'll experience greater respect, trust, and intimacy, and you'll feel more empowered to show up as your authentic self, free from the constraints of unhealthy expectations and obligations. Remember, setting boundaries is not about building walls to keep others out, it's about creating a safe and sacred space within yourself where love, respect, and authenticity can flourish. Sarah's story, finding her voice. Sarah, a devoted wife and mother of two, always put the needs of her family above her own. She volunteered tirelessly at her children's school, readily offered her assistance to friends and neighbors, and rarely, if ever, uttered the word no. While her generosity and selflessness were admirable, they came at a cost. Sarah found herself feeling increasingly overwhelmed, resentful, and disconnected from her own needs and desires. One evening, as Sarah was up late baking for a school fundraiser while simultaneously fielding phone calls from her extended family, she reached her breaking point. The realization washed over her like a tidal wave. She had become so caught up in caring for others that she had neglected to care for herself. That night, Sarah made a decision. She would begin setting boundaries, starting with small, manageable steps. She politely declined a request to organize yet another school event, explaining that she needed some time for herself. She set aside a specific time each day for quiet reflection and prayer, even if it meant letting the laundry pile up a bit longer. At first, Sarah's newfound assertiveness was met with surprise and even some resistance from her family and friends. However, as she consistently communicated her needs with grace and firmness, they gradually adjusted to her boundaries. To Sarah's surprise, they even began to respect her more for prioritizing her own well-being. David's journey, from resentment to respect. David, a successful businessman, prided himself on his work ethic and dedication to his career. However, his long hours and constant availability took a toll on his relationship with his wife, Emily. Emily felt neglected and unimportant. Her requests for quality time often met with excuses or empty promises. As Emily's resentment grew, so too did the distance between them. Arguments became more frequent, and the joy they once shared seemed like a distant memory. David, oblivious to the impact of his actions, felt frustrated and unappreciated, blaming Emily for her negativity. One evening, after a particularly heated argument, David confided in a trusted mentor. The mentor, sensing the depth of David's pain, gently challenged him to consider how his lack of boundaries might be contributing to the problems in his marriage. David took his mentor's words to heart. He began setting aside dedicated time each week for Emily and him, turning off his phone and focusing solely on her. He communicated his limits more clearly at work, delegating tasks and setting realistic deadlines. The transformation was not immediate, but gradually Emily began to feel seen, heard, and valued once more. The power of transformation, a ripple effect. As Sarah and David's stories illustrate, setting boundaries is not just about protecting our own well-being, it's also about creating a ripple effect of positive change in our relationships. When we set healthy limits, we inspire others to do the same, fostering a dynamic of mutual respect, trust, and understanding. Sarah's children, initially resistant to her newfound assertiveness, began to understand the importance of respecting her time and energy. They learned that it's okay to ask for what they need and to set limits when necessary. David's colleagues, initially surprised by his newfound commitment to work-life balance, began to reevaluate their own priorities, realizing that success doesn't have to come at the expense of personal well-being. The transformation extended beyond their immediate circles. Sarah's friends, inspired by her courage and self-respect, began setting boundaries in their own lives, reclaiming their time and energy. David's clients, impressed by his renewed focus and energy, benefited from his enhanced creativity and productivity. Setting boundaries is not a selfish act, it's an act of love. Love for ourselves and for those around us. It's about creating a world where everyone feels safe, respected, and empowered to live their lives authentically and fully. Embracing the journey, a continuous evolution. The journey of setting boundaries is not a destination but an ongoing process of self-discovery, growth, and adjustment. There will be times when we stumble, when our resolve falters, or when our boundaries are tested. But with each experience we learn and grow, becoming more adept at navigating the complexities of relationships with grace and wisdom. Remember that setting boundaries is not about achieving perfection. It's about making progress. It's about choosing ourselves even when it feels uncomfortable or inconvenient. It's about honoring our values and living in alignment with our deepest truths. As we continue on this journey, let us embrace the challenges and celebrate the victories, knowing that each step we take towards setting healthy boundaries brings us closer to living a life that is both fulfilling and authentic. Let us approach ourselves and others with compassion, understanding, and a willingness to learn and grow together. The empowering embrace of boundaries. As we've journeyed together through this exploration of boundaries, we've uncovered their profound impact on our relationships and our lives. Far from being rigid walls that divide, boundaries are the essential building blocks of respect, trust, and authentic connection. They are the language of self-love, whispering to our hearts that we are worthy of honor and care. Remember Sarah, who rediscovered her voice and reclaimed her time? And David, who found a path to reconnect with his wife by setting healthy limits in his work life? Their stories, and countless others like them, remind us that setting boundaries is not a selfish act, but a courageous step towards living in greater alignment with our values and aspirations. When we establish boundaries, we create a sacred space within ourselves and in our relationships, a space where vulnerability can flourish and authentic connection can deepen. We send a powerful message to ourselves and to the world that we are worthy of respect, that our needs matter, and that we are committed to living a life of integrity and purpose. A journey of faith and freedom. Within the embrace of faith, boundaries take on an even deeper significance. They become an act of surrender, a recognition that we are not meant to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. Just as God rested on the seventh day, we too are called to rest, to recharge, and to set aside time for spiritual nourishment. Setting boundaries is not about rejecting love or compassion. It's about creating the space to love more fully and authentically. When we honor our own limits, we are better equipped to extend grace and understanding to others, to offer support without sacrificing our own well-being. This journey of establishing and maintaining healthy boundaries is not always easy. It requires courage, self-awareness, and a willingness to challenge ingrained patterns and expectations. But the rewards, as we've seen, are immeasurable. As we embrace the empowering embrace of boundaries, we step into a life of greater freedom, authenticity, and joy. A life that reflects the boundless love and grace that flow from our faith. Thank you for watching, and if you found this video inspiring, don't forget to subscribe to Dating Relationship Divinely. Let's continue to grow in love and faith together.